First of all, welcome. Thanks very much for coming along to my session. Just to make sure you all are in the right session, it's been up there for a little while anyway, but it's called Bubbling to the Top, Aggregation and the Real-Time Enterprise. So that's a topic I'm going to be covering across in the next hour and 15 minutes or so. So how's the conference been going, folks? Has it been excellent, everything that you hoped it would be? Awesome. Excellent. They've done a fantastic job given the challenges the volcano presented, I have to say. It was awesome that they managed to pull the speakers together, get all the sessions delivered and all of that. Over the weekend, it was incredible to watch all these people drop out one by one because of the volcano. So it's good to see they pulled it off. So guys, before I start, I just want to hand out some cards that I've got here. I've been sort of presenting around Europe for quite some time, and I find that as I'm presenting, I sort of start talking at a very sort of reasonable pace. At a pace that everyone sort of can follow okay. But then as the presentation progresses, I start to speak faster and faster and faster, and by the end of the session, the English people are having trouble understanding what I'm saying. So I got sick of getting these feedback forms which sort of said, Daniel needs to talk slower, or slow down, spoke too fast. So I started out with some cards that just said things like, slow down. So I'm going to give these out to people in the audience. And if you think I'm talking too fast, it's your responsibility to slow me down. Now, as I got into this, I also decided that I probably shouldn't stop there. And then, in fact, if I was being boring, then I should also encourage someone in the audience to let me know, so that I also didn't get on feedback forms, great session, but boring. And, of course, there's also great. It doesn't get used too often. But we've got it there anyway. There's another slow down. Any non-native English speakers that want to have the slow down one? Are you, oh, right, that was well picked out. You just look non-native English speaker for some reason. Okay. There's also the cool one. So I'll hand that out just here. And, oh, the other side of the room, I'll quickly get over to. All right, so please feel free to use these. I'll give it to a friend at the front here. It's always good for encouragement. There's one here called Speed Up as well, if I start to talk in slow motion. Great. I guess by handing these cards out too, it keeps your fingers off Twitter a little bit. And that's also a benefit. I will be looking at Twitter afterwards, okay? If you've got anything to share, share it with all of us, okay? Not just on Twitter. All right, so bit of an introduction. So my name is Daniel McPherson. I work for a small boutique consultancy called Zevenseas. I've been involved in SharePoint pretty much for as long as it's been around. I used to work at Microsoft, so I was actually there in 1999 it was, in January, where Microsoft announced to their internal employees about the release of Microsoft Tahoe. So that was a pretty exciting conference. And that was almost 10 years ago now, which is quite incredible to think that SharePoint's been with us for 10 years. It's sort of really taken off dramatically in 2007 and now 2010, obviously. But it's been around for that long. Throughout that time, I've mostly been working on consulting. So I've mostly done consulting, building out solutions for larger customers. And mostly on the development side, sometimes I've done some work on the infrastructure side as well. So I'm going to start off with a couple of questions, just to sort of work out, what you guys are doing here, what you hope to get out of the session, and those sorts of things. And just to put the session in a bit of perspective. So it's called Bubbling to the Top. First question I've got is, how many people feel like they're being overwhelmed by information today? Okay, it's about 50%. That's actually less than I expected. But I think that we've all, if not today, because the tools keep getting better too, but if not today, I think that there's been this general movement towards more and more information, us having to deal with more and more information. So I think that's a general problem that we've got today, and I think it's a problem that's only going to get worse with time. How many people want to get information faster so they can make decisions faster? Okay, it's a pretty good show of hands. There's a few more show of hands for that one round. Next one is, how many people think the information is going to get worse from here? Our information overload, the problem with having too much information. Okay, that's good. Pretty much everyone. I agree. And so the final one is, how many people feel that it's gone too far and the information actually has a personal vendetta against you and is now attacking like a vicious drone horde? All right, because that's the way I feel, frankly. Okay, I don't know about you, but every time I open up my desktop and open up a new application, it's a new way of getting information, whether that's Facebook or Twitter or all those things we're going to talk about more. So we need to employ some sort of information kung fu to turn our enemy's greatest strengths into its greatest weakness. So that's really what this session is all about. I guess it's the problem, which is too much information, And more specifically, it's the problem of we're going to get even more information very, very shortly, which is the real-time web. And there's a lot of things that are happening now with real-time information. And then it's also the flip side of that, which is what I feel like the solution, which is all about aggregation and how we can do more with aggregation to actually find knowledge in amongst this huge amount of information we're now going to have to start dealing with. So let's start with real-time first. I don't know what that word "neen" is in the middle there. No, I'm not going to explain that away anyway. I can try. So real-time's been with us for a long time. So one of the things about the IT industry is that, cool, okay, thank you very much for the cool. This gentleman in the back there thinks my spelling error is cool. So it's a certain authenticity about my presentation when there's errors in it, isn't there? So real-time's been with us for a long time. That's the thing about IT, is it keeps going in cycles. You know, the classic one for me is the whole, you know, everything's done on the server, then everything's done on the client, and then everything's done on the server again. We went from mainframes to PCs, back to the web, and then now we're getting the JavaScript coming back again, we're back to the client. You know, so the big thing for me is IT just keeps going in circles, and real-time is another example of that, in that it's been with us for a long time, it sort of was in fashion, it went out of fashion, it's come back into fashion, out, and it's back into fashion again. And I think there's some huge advances in real time, which I'll talk about, which sort of bring it into fashion. So examples of that are IRC. So the IRC chatting has been around for a long time. People have been chatting inside of black and white screens for as long as the internet's been around. ICQ. How many people here remember ICQ? Wow. That's unbelievable. It's still going. I think it's part of AOL now. But I'll never forget that sort of uh-oh noise it made whenever you got a message. You know, it was a very iconic sort of noise, kind of like the Intel tune that you get for CPUs. So there's ICQ. That was the first real time. That application was amazing when it came out. I mean, it really changed my internet. And then obviously there's MSN, Messenger. But what's really bringing about this new focus on the real-time web, I think, is fundamentally two big movements or two big applications. The first one is Twitter. So how many people here are on Twitter? You're going to get sore arms by the end of the session, aren't you? All right, good. So pretty much everyone is on Twitter now, I think. That's been an enormous growth for that application. In fact, it started only in March 2006, and it's got 23 million. I'm sure it's up to like 25 million unique users now since the last time I went and researched that statistic. But basically, this was the rebirth, or the way I think about it, the rebirth of the real-time web. So what I mean by the real-time web is that when you enter something, when you type something and you send a bit of information to somebody else, they get it instantly. And then more than that, when they get it instantly, they're able to reply instantly. So the real-time web is all about sending information from its source to its destination as quickly as possible, instantly, in fact. So we're going to talk a little bit more about Twitter, but where Twitter for me really came of age was when all the riots were happening in Iran. And I think this sort of opened up the eyes to a lot of people as well about the power of Twitter and the power of real-time. When all the crisis hit Iran, the best place to get information, the first place to get information, wasn't on your standard cable news network television stations. They were typically about 3 hours or 4 hours behind the news hitting Twitter. So if you wanted to keep up to date, as up to date as you possibly could be about what was going on in Iran, then Twitter was the number one place to go. And that was an incredible breakthrough for that new technology to come onto the market. It's only 3 years old, 3.5 years old at that time, and to all of a sudden be the main source for information about such an incredibly important issue for the entire world. You know, that was an incredible breakthrough. So I think the thing for me, as I talk about this, is that we're obviously not out there building public-facing internet sites. Typically the audience I'm speaking to here, and maybe there are some people like that, but typically we're in companies and we're trying to work out how to help people work better together. How to drive more efficiency, get more productivity, share knowledge more effectively, all of those sorts of things. If this can work on the internet, if Twitter is this powerful and has this many benefits to this many people on the internet, then why can't that also be very useful and very valuable inside of organisations today? I think that's why I'm talking about Twitter, but absolutely this is what we should be doing inside the organisations too. I think that there are lots of companies already doing this, and you might think your company isn't doing it, but I guarantee it probably is doing it. There's a lot of enterprise Twitter applications out there like Yammer that people are just signing up to. And Yammer have a very interesting business model where you sign up with your corporate accounts and then you go crazy with your other people from your company. And then if the company wants to then manage those people back, they'll actually allow you to rent off them to then manage those users once they've signed up to the service. So it's a very creative business model in order to grow your service and grow users on your service. But Twitter's got benefits. Those benefits are applicable to companies, and whether you like it or not, the people in your organisation are starting to use these tools to collaborate more efficiently, more effectively, and get all the benefits that Twitter provides everyone else in their day-to-day jobs. So the bottom line there is CNN lost. This very high-resourced, global power in television lost to a little startup company on the internet. So the next one was Facebook. This is the other one that's really taken real-time to the next level. And I think one of the reasons why Facebook has really been so aggressive about this is because they firmly see themselves as competitors to Twitter. So with the emergence of Twitter, Facebook absolutely readjusted and redesigned their site in order to compete very, very aggressively with what Twitter provides. So you would have noticed with Facebook over the last year or so, you've got the Write Something box. Everything keeps updating as you're watching it. The whole screen just actually refreshes with the information and news coming from your friends. They changed all their privacy controls so that now it's more public by default. And by doing that, they can actually leverage that information more effectively. So Facebook's doing a lot of things to compete with Twitter, and they're sort of coming at it from two different angles in a way. But they're both firmly focused on making it easier for you to communicate and making it quicker for you to communicate with other people. So that's what all this means, basically, is that if you're not feeling like you're overloaded with information today, then you will tomorrow. Well, all this real-time information, just spend a day looking at your newsfeed inside of Facebook and just watch all the stuff scroll by you. It's going to be a pretty boring day, probably. Depends on your friends. Probably a pretty boring day. But just watch, and that stream of information is just passing by. Just take a look at Twitter. Have a look at the SharePoint evolutions, conference tweets. Just watch them scrolling by. There's an enormous amount of information being generated, and that you have to try and work out a way to derive value out of that information. So one of the ways I'm sort of thinking about this is that, in a way, we need to take a look at how dogs smell. Okay? And there's a very smart guy called Chris Messina who sort of put this theory forward, basically. But we're having to deal with more and more information. And dogs also have to deal with more and more information, a lot more information than we're used to. So, for example, we smell with about 6 million sensors. Okay? Our nose has about 6 million sensors, and that controls how much information we can process via our nose. Well, a dog processes 300 million of those same sensors to process the scent and to get the scent to come in. So that's an incredible difference. How does a dog process all that smell without, I don't know, I think if I could process 300 million sensors of scent, I'd probably die, I think, if I had to process all that information at once. So how do dogs do it? And basically, dogs have evolved. They've got noses specially designed to be able to filter through all of that scent information they get to be able to drive just the information they need, just to derive where their food is or where their owner is or whatever else. So we need to do the same way. We need to take in all that information and work out some way that we can boil that down to just the information that will help us make decisions as part of doing our jobs. It was also just an opportunity to put a few dog noses up on the screen. I just hadn't done that in a session before. So the thing here is it's all about the printing press. I think as well, if we go back to the more things change, the more they stay the same. I'm sure that people thought that when the printing press came along, it's like, oh my gosh, look at all this information. How the hell are we going to process all of this information? Look at these libraries. They're full of information. How am I going to read all of this stuff? And basically you don't. We've developed ways and mechanisms for filtering down an entire library to just the books we want to be able to read. And that's the same thing we have to do with the information coming off the intranet in the real time. So moving on. As we move beyond that, so now that's sort of the real time and sort of an emphasis on how much information is really going to be coming through to us. And I guess now I want to flip over and start talking about aggregation and talk about how aggregation of all that information can start to help us derive that value, help us find those books in the library that we're actually looking for. So there's two pieces to that, and this is the first piece. Twitter's been quite controversial because it's never really made money yet. And people keep thinking it's never going to make money. Where's the business model for Twitter? But a strange thing happened, and that is that Google went and did a licensing deal with them. So what now happens is that as Google, if you do a search in Google, you can actually search through tweets inside of Twitter as well. Now, that's not something that I sort of saw coming, I have to say. When I was talking to friends about how Twitter might become profitable, I didn't sort of think about the fact that it would be a great place to start searching for information. But Google obviously thought so. And if you thought about it too, there's no real place, or there wasn't any place you could go before to search for things that are happening right now. And I'll give you a really basic example. It's a bit of a terrible example, but it's still a good example. I was trying to get onto MSDN to download some stuff off MSDN, and I couldn't get there. So it was down. So I was thinking, well, that's a bit strange. MSN's down. I need to be able to download something quickly to build this for a customer. So I thought I'll go onto Twitter and I'll send out a tweet saying, is MSN down for anyone else? You know, to get that real-time feedback on whether other people have the same problem. But then I thought further, well, actually, why don't I just do a search on Twitter? Because other people have probably already posted about MSN being down for them. So I could start to short-circuit that whole process. Now I was just searching and I was finding the information I need. You couldn't do that on Google. You wouldn't go to Google and say, is MSDN down right now? I mean, that's just not a search you do on Google. But when you think about it, that's being able to search for what's happening right now, that's got to be a fairly big part of the sorts of information we search for. Why isn't that more valuable? Why haven't we had that solved that problem before? So Twitter coming along really starts to solve that problem. It takes the aggregate of all the things that people are tweeting about, and it makes it possible for you to search across that information and get the information back. So this is a pretty interesting statistic. Twitter is actually the #2 search engine on the internet. That's incredible. There's a few caveats. It's not really necessarily a like-for-like comparison, but it's bigger than Bing, and it's bigger than Yahoo. So again, that's an incredible statistic to find that Twitter's gone from nowhere, 2006, right through to being probably the second biggest search engine on the internet today. So now if we think about whether Twitter's going to become profitable or not, well, I think we can be pretty sure that Twitter's going to become profitable if it's serving that much traffic. So here's where I think it leads us, and that is that it gives us the ability to read minds. You know, I think that's kind of where we head with this ability to look at information in the aggregate. We can start to see what people are thinking. And so this is the way I sort of broke it down, is that first of all, there's what I'm thinking. So that's pretty easy for me to know. Okay, I know what I'm thinking, I know what's in my head. Then there's what you're thinking. So then there's what are all the things that you're thinking out there. I don't know what's in your head. It would be nice to know that. Beyond that, there's what are all the people that I'm connected to thinking. You know, so there are people that I have a particular interest in. So what are they thinking about? And then finally is what is everyone thinking about? And in a way, Twitter really gives us this answer. Twitter tells us what people are thinking about. That's what it does. You go up to Twitter, you type in your 140 characters, that's what you're thinking about. And so the cool thing that happens when people all start to think about the same thing at once, that's when this information starts to bubble up to the top, and that's really where it comes from. Iran's is a good example in that everyone started talking about Iran. Everyone started talking about what was going on there. And so as a result, Iran started bubbling to the top. That became the thing that was most important going on at that time on Twitter and on the internet. So by aggregation and by aggregating the information that you've got already and then cutting and slicing it and dicing it and looking at the best way to analyze that information, you can really start to derive some great value from some of these tools. And again, it's the sort of thing we've been doing for ages with data warehousing and all of that. It's just applied to a slightly different data set, and maybe a data set we hadn't thought about before. So there's a few really cool experiments that people are doing to demonstrate just how powerful this can be. Okay, so this one here I thought this was very, very clever. Facebook have done this thing where they're trying to work out a happiness index for America. Okay? So what they do is that they go through all of their profiles and they take a look at the status updates people are doing. And they read through the status updates and they have a way of categorizing whether the words people use in the status updates are happy or sad. Okay? And then on the basis of this, they start to construct a chart. And so this is a chart that they've produced which covers off the happiness of America over different periods of time. And the interesting thing is that it kind of correlates pretty nicely to certain events. Thank you, great, good. It correlates to certain events in America which would be considered happy events. So for example, you can see a huge peak there at Thanksgiving, a huge peak at Christmas, a huge peak at New Year's Eve. So this is also an interesting piece about this, is it's actually pretty accurate. You know, if you can get the scale, then you can get the accuracy out of this. You know, it can tell you some really useful, valuable information. So that's a nice little thing that experiment Facebook are running. And if you start thinking like this, there's an enormous number of things you can start to do with the information that's in Facebook, and in aggregate. So moving beyond that, here's another cool experiment. This one here you might have heard of. This is the Google Flu Tracker. So the way that the Google Flu Tracker works is that when people have a cold or are sneezing or have a runny nose or all these really nice symptoms, they often Google the symptoms. So they jump up to Google and they type in, I've got a runny nose. And Google behind the scenes says, well, how many people have had a runny nose? Well, we see that there's a huge number of people with a runny nose happening in these particular places. As you can see, the flu is pretty low at the moment. But during flu season, you can go back and see it. During flu season, these colours all change. And again, it's incredibly accurate. Actually, they were looking to go back through the Google information to try and work out, with the Mexican flu and all that sort of stuff that came along, did Google see it coming? Could Google see this emerging, the flu epidemic? Could it see it emerging before anyone else did? So that's a pretty powerful thing when you think about it. And so what I'm encouraging you to do is just think about, if you could do this inside your organisation, how would that help you make better decisions? How could you be quicker and more agile if you could start to see some of these things coming? So, in essence, let's see what it all boils down to, real-time and aggregation. It's all about flowing information around the enterprise as fast as it can possibly go. How do you get information from A to B? It's about integrating that information into your search experience to help people get answers to questions right now. And then it's about cutting and slicing the aggregate of all this information to ensure the most valuable bits bubble up to the top. So that's, in essence, that's what I'm talking about doing. That's a strategy that you could go and implement inside your organisations in order to, hopefully, drive more value and make quicker decisions, all those things. This is also the sort of thing that SharePoint 2010 is starting to make possible. I think that they could have gone a lot further, and I'll talk about some of the limitations, perhaps, I see in the product. But it's still the platform there that these sorts of applications are a great place to build. It's a great place to build these sorts of applications. So, wisdom rises. I think that's the other point that I wanted to get across, is that it's all about making the smart stuff bubble up to the top. And here's a couple of ways that wisdom rises. These are some of the things that you can start to grab onto in order to make the best stuff bubble up to the top and then make it easy for you to read. So the first thing is, whenever you interact with something on the internet, you're actually enriching it. No matter what you do, you're enriching it. So, for example, if you go and visit a page, I guarantee it, behind the scenes, somebody's doing some analytics on that page. So they're tracking the fact that you viewed that page, and based on the fact that you view that page, they can start to then work on whether their website's working effectively or not working effectively, how to optimize the experience for you, all these sorts of things. So the instant that you do anything on the internet, you're actually enriching that web page, you're enriching that experience. There's a whole lot of more depth you can go to. So, for example, in Wikipedia, you can enrich from Wikipedia by actually making your own edits. And it goes further. So here's just a list of some of the things I pulled out as being ways that you can enrich information on the internet or on the intranet that can then help you derive and find out what's the most important information that I need to be able to read and get access to. So it's things like the number of views. This is something I've got a lot of experience with the company I'm working at, and that we have a big blog portal and a big video portal. And one of the best ways to work out what's important, what I should read, is just whether other people have read it and they think it's important too. So if you've got a blog post or a video that's got a huge number of views, then the chances are that there's something important about that video that has caused it to get a large number of views. It doesn't mean that it absolutely is relevant to me, but it's just one of those factors that help to indicate that might be something more relevant to me, and it bubbles up to the top. You've got ratings, or you've got likes. Ratings is an interesting one. People often start at the 5-star rating system. I think that's sort of been a bit of a failure. And I noticed that SharePoint has a 5-star rating system too. I think it's a bit of a failure. But likes is another way of approaching it. So you just say whether you like something or not. Make it more binary rather than this sort of subjective, do I use 3 stars or 2 stars type approach. But there's ratings. There's comments, there's replies, there's the time that it happened. Often something is more relevant to you if it's just been posted. There's author and there's reputation. So you can start to build up a reputation inside your organisation, and then when you write something, it's more likely to be valuable to other people because you've got that reputation behind you. There's tags, there's location. Location's a huge one that's really taking off, again, probably on the back of Twitter. There's applications like Foursquare that allow you to sort of check in around the place and tell people where you are and find out where other people are and connect and get discount coupons and all sorts of things. There's retweets and postbacks. Retweets are an interesting one. By retweeting things, it's kind of like the page rank of Twitter. With Google, where you have links, and the number of links coming into your site helps to work out where that page is in the search results. Retweets is kind of like the page rank for Twitter, and the more retweets you get, the more likely that information was important, was valuable. Blogs have got another concept called postbacks, but that kind of got killed by spammers. Inside organisations, I think we could revisit postbacks and start to get more value from them. So there's a lot of stuff in there. A lot of stuff is automatic. A lot of this metadata you just get for free. Some of the other stuff, you need to think of creative ways about how to get people and how to motivate people to add that information, describe the information on your sites. I've got a few tips on how you might be able to do that later on in the session. And one thing that Bill Gates used to say, it's good to make bad news travel fast, and I think that's really an important thing. How can you make the bad news in your organisation travel as fast as possible through the organisation? And I think some of these, making that wisdom rise is one of those ways to get that bad news traveling fast. Okay, so I'm going to give you a very basic demo. I said in my abstract that I was going to show you how to build YouTube for your organisation. How many people were here because they wanted to see how to build YouTube for your organisation? No one? Oh, one, thanks, Nigel. Okay, well, besides the fact that it's building YouTube for your organisation, it is showing how you can start to get the information bubbling to the top in a very, very basic way. So the first thing I'm going to do is log on over here onto my site. So I'm logged on as a person called Paul Brown. So one of the nice things with SharePoint 2010 is that it now supports streaming a video directly out of the libraries, out of document libraries. So that's a nice big advance. It's now a good place for you to store videos and to stream videos out of it. That's the good news. The bad news is, apart from that, there's really not much they did to really make video experience a lot better. Although, sorry, they also did a Silverlight video web part, so sorry, there's two things. But apart from that, they haven't really done a great job of really helping you get more and more value out of video. I would have loved to see them do a video site, which is like a blog site, but for videos. So you could just upload your video and you get this like streaming blog post of all the videos you uploaded, much like YouTube. So what I decided to do was quickly mock together a site which can kind of like do that. So it's kind of like a blog site, but for videos. If I want to upload a video, I can upload it, I can publish it to other people, and then we can go from there. So I'm Paul. Paul's gone to his My Site, and he's gone to his content, and he's gone to his videos, and this is what you see. So if we scroll down and take a look, I've got 3 videos I've published here. Along with the videos, we can see how many times people have viewed it, and we've seen how many comments that people have made and when it was published. So there we've got 3 pieces of information which help us to work out whether this video is relevant to us or not. Is it something we want to watch? So let's say the training workshop was something we wanted to watch. Then what we could do is click on the show video. And away it goes. Pops up, and we have a video. What I could also do is drill into that video by clicking on the link. And here's my video. And again, I can go and watch my video inside here, inside the image, inside the list item. Or I can scroll to the bottom, and I've got the ability to make a comment. So right down here at the bottom, I can make a great video. Thanks for the video. Okay. And I click on submit comment, and away it goes. So again, the number of comments, that's another piece of information that can help me work out whether this video is relevant for me to watch. If someone have commented a lot on a video, then obviously there's some controversy or there's some discussion. There's something going on about that video which might encourage me to go and watch it. So away we go. And then finally, I've got my list of videos. And from here, I can go and click on a video, and I can play it directly from that list of videos as well. Sample videos aside. Well, disappointed no one came here for the video, the YouTube demonstration, but there you go. None of this is out of the box, by the way, so all of this is customization, but I'll tell you, it only took me about a day to go and customize it. And the cool thing about this, again with SharePoint 2010, is I didn't have to write any C# code. So everything I've shown you here is all done just using JavaScript. So it's all done with SharePoint Designer and a little bit of JavaScript. Okay, good, great, you like that, excellent. All right, so I'll probably get around to posting this on my blog, so you can download it and start to work with it yourself. But that's a really cool thing that I didn't write any C#. It's just JavaScript. It's just SharePoint Designer. I can deploy this on anywhere in SharePoint without having to touch the server. Nice stuff. So with that said, so let's move on a bit further here, because the interesting thing here is that I've got my videos, and this is my video site. It lives in my site. Now, if I'm somebody else in my organisation, then I also have a video site, and that's also in my site. And then a third person, and a fourth, and a fifth. So what you end up having is all of this information, all these videos split up across everyone's My Site. And then you hit a bit of a problem with SharePoint, because there's no way to aggregate that information just to one place. All the aggregation APIs, everything inside of SharePoint is focused in on just a single site collection. So what I'm going to show you now is an aggregation page where what we've done is aggregated the information across everyone's My Sites to then start to work out where some of the value might be in these sites. So here it is right here. So what you can see is I've got a video from John, I've got a video from Jane, and I've probably got a video from Paul. So again, now I've taken the videos from everyone's My Site and I've pulled them into one single portal where you can go and access those videos and see what's going on. So over here we might have the most recent videos down to the oldest videos. And then over here you can start to see that the information's bubbling to the top. This video here has had 29 views. that's probably an important video. That's one I should go and watch. And equally, there's one here with 3 comments. Again, there's probably something important about that video. It's bubbled up to the top. Maybe I should drill in and watch that video. So this is an example of how you can do it with SharePoint. You can have your sites, the information in your sites in real time, spread all the way across your farm. And then you have these aggregation portals which bring it all together and then allow you to cut and slice and work out what's important and what you should be reading. So that's sort of the model that I've put in place there with this YouTube for your organization on SharePoint. Okay. All right. Well, there you go. Swap back. So the features that are in SharePoint 2010, which are going to be important for real-time and for aggregation, is, first of all, there's the activity stream. So I think you guys are all pretty familiar. I'm not going to go in and do these demos. I'm sure you've been demoed to death on some of these features. But there's the activity stream, a really important feature that I think was missing in earlier versions of SharePoint, which is basically that place you can go where you can see what your colleagues are doing on the internet and you can follow what they're doing. It's classic Facebook newsfeed type stuff. But for me, that sort of brings back into play that sort of learning that you used to have around the water cooler, in that you just accidentally learn something from a colleague, which is actually really valuable. And the newsfeed does that, or the activity stream in SharePoint does that for us. Office web applications. Some of the capabilities in Office now let you edit documents simultaneously. So you can edit a document at the same time as somebody else is editing a document. Be interesting to see how that shakes out in the real world. But it's a real-time capability that's now in there, which I think is also going to be interesting to see how it changes the way we work. There's tags, ratings, they're now spread throughout the entire product. Search has been improved a lot. And actually, what I just showed you before, that's driven by search. So that aggregation page is all driven by using the SharePoint search engine to do that aggregation for us. And then there's a social bookmarking capability that's built in as well. So there's a lot of new capabilities I've put in SharePoint. I wish they went further, but it's not a bad start. One thing I will say is if you're expecting SharePoint 2010 to be Twitter, you're going to be disappointed because it's just not there. And that's a bit of a misconception which I've been picking up from people. They think that 2010's got Twitter because it's got this status update thing. It's not the same thing. It's a completely different thing. And we'll need something else to fill that gap. All this is not all good. One thing that I've found time and time again is that often a lot of these solutions need scale to really be effective and to really work. And I think one of the best examples of that is wikis. I haven't really seen a wiki take off in a broad sense inside of an organization. So what I mean by that is I haven't seen a wiki, someone inside of an organization deploy a wiki and just leave it and then watch it grow, like it has on the internet. And that's a disappointment for me because I really thought it must be able to, what's going on there. And I think the thing is that you really need a massive number of people in order to make that sort of solution really work. Or at least a very, very passionate group of people in order to make that work. And I think sometimes they're difficult to find inside of organizations. So as a result, I haven't seen wikis really take off. And I think that could also be the case with a number of these sorts of solutions I've been talking about. You really need the scale. Twitter needs that scale. Until everyone's twittering, there's not much value. One person twittering is not much value. 2, it gets more value. It's a network effect that starts to kick in. Okay, so the last thing I wanted to do was give you another example about how you can use this real-time information and the activity streams and all that. But in this case, to drive user adoption. I think this is always one of the most difficult problems we face inside of organizations is how do we get people to use this stuff? And so this is something that I'm pretty interested in. How many people here play the Xbox? All right, there's a few. Okay. How many people... boring. The Xbox is boring. All right. How many people here collect things? Are any stamp collectors? Are there any collectors of anything? Any train spotters? I just threw that one in there. All right. So there's no real collectors. Okay. All right. There's a thing about human psychology, though, I think we'll all agree, that makes us want to collect things. It makes us want to get badges. If you're in the Boy Scouts, then you want to try and tie as many knots as you can to get those badges. There's something about human psychology which means that we like to collect things, we like to put things on our pockets, we like to demonstrate that we've attained something, we've achieved something. So what I wanted to try and do is take that sort of human psychology and bend it a little bit so that it motivates us to use our applications on our intranet more effectively. And this is a trick that the Xbox has used fantastically well. And what the Xbox has is this concept called achievements. Okay? So in the old days, what you'd do is you would buy a game, you'd put the game on your Xbox, and you'd play the game until the end, and then you'd stop. And that might take 20 hours. Even though there was sort of 40 or 50 hours of gameplay inside of that box, inside of that game, You only played the 20, just linearly, end to end, that's it. So the people who made the Xbox games wanted to try and find some way they could motivate people to actually play all of the game, not just the one linear line from end to finish. So they came up with this concept called achievements. So basically you get achievements for doing all sorts of stuff. You know, whether that's exploring certain areas or taking out X number of aliens, or, I don't know, Xbox people help me out here. What are some of the great achievements you've had in the Xbox? But basically there's a whole lot of different sorts of achievements. And the makers of the game designed these achievements so that the person is motivated to get the most out of the game, to show off the best aspects of that game. And then once they've got those achievements, they then publish them up on their passport site or on their live site so that other people can see what achievements they've got. And so then it becomes this competition where people are trying to get more achievements than the other person, and people get more value out of the game, and away they go. So all of that sounds like end-user adoption. You know, how do you drive end-user adoption? How do you get people to use the games more? So why can't we apply that to our intranets as well? So what I'm going to do is duck across here and go to my profile. Actually, I'm not going to go to my profile. I'm just going to swap users. Give me 1 second here. I'm going to log on to someone different. Okay. Oh yeah, that's a good point too, isn't it? Okay, that's swapping across and swapping the screen. Okay, so what I have here is Jane G. Okay, so Jane's new on the intranet. She's just got started and she does things on the intranet. So one of the nice things about 2010 is as she does things on the intranet, then what happens is that goes into our activity stream. That's get aggregated up and exposed via our activity stream. So as you can see, there's a couple of things she's already done here. So she's already tagged a bit of content, and she's also joined the distribution list. Okay, those things are positive behaviours on our internet. We want people to tag content. We want people to join distribution lists. We want them to do these things. So how can we encourage people to do more of it? So let's have a look what happens. Jane's going to go across into her video site now, and she's going to tag some more content. So I'm going to go down into my videos, and I'm going to go into my videos, and I'm going to tag some content here. So I'm going to click on that, and I'm going to say tag. So this is also about learning. Oops. It's about learning, so I'm going to save that. Okay, and then I'm going to tag another piece of content down here. Oops. I'm going to tag this one. Oops. And this is senior. Okay, and save that. And I'm going to do one more tag back over here again. So you have to imagine I'm going around the internet and I'm tagging this in a really creative way. Okay, and let's save that away. All right, so I've been tagging content. So what happens now is when I go back to my profile, what we should see shortly is that those will appear in my list over here. So you can see that already we've got one. That tag that I just did with learning, that's come up and appeared in here. Now, there's a timer running in the background. Okay, so this is where I get a little bit anxious while I wait to see. I'm not sure that it's working yet. I think it's working, but I'm not 100% sure. As you do stuff on the intranet, then that takes a little while to be published in your activity stream. Okay, so I've tried to accelerate that as best I can, but right now we're just waiting for the activities I just made to appear inside of my activity stream. Jokes are welcome. Anyone speed up? Okay, good. Thank you very much. Nothing like putting the pressure on me there. All right, let's do it. There we go. All right, so you see a couple of things have happened. Cool, thank you. All right, a couple of things have happened. My activity stream's been updated, but I've also earned the taxonomist badge. Okay? All right, that was good, huh? All right, thank you. All right, good. Okay, thank goodness. I thought the whole YouTube thing was going to sink me, but okay, I'm coming back. I'm making a comeback. All right, so this is a cool thing in that it's a gold badge as well. So not only is it a badge, but it's a gold badge. So it indicates that not only have I achieved the taxonomist badge, but it's actually a pretty difficult badge for me to go and achieve as well. So let's have a look at some other activities I could do. Let's say, for example, I might edit my profile. That's a good thing. We want people to edit their profiles, right? That's a big problem we have is that people don't keep their profiles up to date. So here's a description. And I'm going to save that. And I'm going to make another one. Let's edit my profile again. And I'm going to put in interest. So Xbox. I'm sure Nancy Reagan was a great Xboxer. Okay, and I think I'll just do one more just because I can't remember. Okay, well, while we're doing that, let me show you how this is built. So just to show this is not smoke and mirrors, what I've got sitting behind the scenes here is I've got my rules engine. Okay, that's a very basic rules engine. But when I click on that, in a second, we'll see it pops up. So basically what I have is a list of different sorts of behavior I want to encourage. So for example, the taxonomist badge that we just saw, that assigns to the activity type 12, you need 4 points in order to get that badge. And points can be created any way you like. I've just done it in a very basic way where I just count the number of times you do it, and that means you've succeeded in that badge. Okay? You could be a lot more creative than that. You could do it based on how populated your profile is. So if your profile goes over 75%, then you get the badge. A lot of different ways you can do it. Here's a description of what happens, and then there's the class, whether it's gold, silver, bronze, or you can do this any way you like. So looking back, what I've just done is I've worked on the autobiographer type, which means I've updated my profile to keep people up to date with information. That's a silver badge. So hopefully when I go back now and refresh my profile, we should see that I've now picked up the autobiographer badge as well, which I haven't. Okay. Is it 3 times, is it? Was the count 3 times? Oh, okay, all right. Oh, no. Did I do it 3 times or just twice? Ah, okay. See, that's proving that it works. All right, so I've done that now. Let's hope this time it does come through. Okay, so the one final thing is when you hover, that's the other thing I wanted to show, is when you hover over this, you can see that the information comes back about what you're doing. Okay, so all of this seems a little bit petty, doesn't it? It's like, I'm not going to go and do stuff just to collect badges. Yeah. That's what you think, all right? But we're psychologically wired to do something different. We're psychologically wired to go and collect these things, okay? So I guarantee it, once it gets out, then people will start to work out how they can get those badges, and they'll want to collect them, and they'll want to present them to other people to show what they're doing and how they're behaving and how these things work. So it's a very addictive thing. You can also do things where you don't tell people how you get them, okay? So there's these badges, but it's not clear what the rules are in order to get the badges, okay? Also quite a nifty thing to do to start to get people to start to use these tools more and more. Okay, so what I'm going to do is just do a quick refresh and hope the autobiographer badge comes in. No, it didn't. I'm glad the first part of the demo worked. I'll keep coming back to it later. So I think it's quite useful. And again, this is just another example of what you can start to do when you've got access to this information in aggregate. When you can see all this information coming in, you start to cut and slice it, start to drill in to find value, sitting in there inside all this information. Okay. Oh, no, we'll have to come back to it later. I'm really glad the first one worked. Okay. So just to finish off. So, in summary, the amount of information that we're having to deal with, the amount of information coming into us, is not about to plateau. Okay, we're totally exponentializing. I don't know if I just made up that word, but that's what we're doing. We're exponentializing. The amount of information is just going to grow dramatically, like nothing we've ever seen before. We're going to have to find ways of making the good stuff bubble to the top. There's no way we're going to be able to keep up with it. It's the classic problem that people have when they first start out into Twitter, is they think of it like an inbox. And they sit there and they mark them all as red. Okay? You're not going to survive. You just have to let it pass you by. But you then have to rely on Twitter and the tools in Twitter to help you bubble the information you miss back to the top so that you find it, you don't miss anything important. That's why hashtags are important. The tag flags that come with that are important, all those sorts of things. And finally, try Twitter if you haven't, but it seems everyone in the room already has. So there's my Twitter handle that you can go and follow me if you like. And let me just come back. I'm very persistent about making this. No, it's still not working. All right, folks. I should have just told you it was working. You can't see the screen anyway. That would have been great. All right, so folks, thanks very much for spending a bit of time with me this afternoon. I hope there's been a little bit of value in there, if not for the YouTube example on SharePoint 2010. But I really appreciate it, and I'll be hanging around for any questions or anything like that. Otherwise, have a good conference. Thanks.